Hello everyone, welcome to week 5 of the lecture for CIN603, and in this week we shall be looking at use case modeling. Object modeling with the unified modeling language. The UML uses a set of symbols to represent graphically the various components and relationships within a system. It mainly is used to support object-oriented systems analysis and to develop object models. The UML, also known as Unified Modeling Language, is a general-purpose developmental model language in the field of software engineering that is intended to provide a standard way to visualize the design of a system. The main thing highlighted by a UML is that it helps a team, it helps a project manager, or it helps a system analysis to visualize what the prospective system would look like. Reasons for using UML. It permits you to specify the structure or behavior of a system. It also helps you to visualize a system. UML provides template that guides you in constructing a system. Moreover, it helps to understand the complex system part by part. And finally, it documents the decisions that you have made. What is a use case diagram? A use case diagram summarizes the details of a system's users, summarizes users' interaction with the system, uses a set of symbols and connectors, and it represents scenarios, goals, and scope. In the unified modeling language, a use case diagram can summarize the details of your system's users, also known as actors, and their interactions with the system. To build one, you'll use a set of specialized symbols and connectors. An effective use case diagram can help your team discuss and represent scenarios in which your system or application interact with people, organizations, or external systems. Moreover, a use case diagram can help your team to discuss and represent goals that your system or application helps those entities, also known as actors, achieve. And finally, the use case diagram helps the team to identify the scope of the system. So when we talk about the word scope, scope is basically the defined features and functions of a product or the work needed to finish a project. When to apply a use case diagram? A use case diagram doesn't go into a lot of detail. For example, don't expect it to model the order in which the steps are performed. Instead, a proper use case diagram depicts a high-level overview of the relationship between use cases, actors, and systems. Experts recommend that use case diagrams be used to supplement a more descriptive textual use case. UML is the modeling toolkit that you can use to build your diagrams. Use cases are represented with a labeled oval shapes. The stick figures represent actors in the process, and the actor's participation in the system is modeled with a line between the actor and use case. To depict the system boundary, a box around the use case is drawn. UML use case diagrams are ideal for representing goals of system user interactions, defining and organizing functional requirements in a system, specifying the context and requirements of a system, modeling the basic flow of events in a use case. Refer to the diagram or the illustration on the slide. The stick figures represent actors. The ovals represent use case. The lines between actors and use cases represent the connectors. And the rectangle, which is around the use case, represents the system boundary. Use case diagram components. Actors, the users interact with the system. System is sequence of interaction between actors and the system, which is scenarios. Goals is basically the end results of the use cases. To answer the question, what is a use case diagram? You will need to first understand its building blocks. That is, some common components. And these components include actors. The actors are basically the users that interact with a system. An actor can be a person, it can be an organization, or it can be an outside system that interacts with your application or system. There must be external objects that produce or consume data. Actors are classified into primary actors and secondary actors. Primary actors initiate a use case and hence are somewhat independent. Secondary actors, on the other hand, react to the actions by the primary actors or use cases. System, on the other hand, is a specific sequence of actions and interactions between actors and the system. The system may also be referred to as a scenario. Goals, these are the end results of most use cases. A successful diagram should describe the activities and variants used to reach the goal. Use case diagram symbols and notation. The notation for a use case diagram is pretty straightforward and doesn't involve as many types of symbols as other UML diagrams. Use cases, basically these are represented by horizontally shaped ovals that represent the different uses that a user might have. Actors, stick figures that represent the people actually employing the use cases. Associations or connectors, a line between actors and use cases. In complex diagrams, it is important to know which actors are associated with which use cases. And finally, system boundary boxes, a box that sets a system scope to use cases. All use cases outside the box would be considered outside the scope of that system. For example, pardon me, repeat that. System boundary boxes, a box that sets a system scope to use cases. All use cases outside the box would be considered outside the scope of a system. For example, a doctor actually interacting with a hospital information system. So the use cases would represent all the functionalities that the system might represent. So therefore, the use cases will be overlapped and then it will be inside a box. So outside the box would be actors, whereby a doctor could be one of them. So the actor would be connected through the use of an association to a particular use case. Example 1, publish a book. The use case diagram is the visual representation of the process required to write and publish a book. Let's refer to the example. Whether you're an author or an agent or a bookseller, inserting this diagram into your use case scenarios can help your team publish the next big hit. So to identify the actors in this particular diagrams are writer, editor, distributor, proofreader, agent, bookseller. So how do we identify the actors? It could be done in two possible ways. Firstly, by looking at the stick figures, and secondly, by also noticing that all these elements are outside the box. Further, do note this, that there are two types of actors, the primary and the secondary actor. So the primary actors are always located on the left-hand side, whereas a secondary actor is always represented on the right-hand side. Use cases. So the use cases from the diagrams are draft the story, review story, suggest edits, revise story, sell story, package story, deliver story to consumers. So how do we identify these use cases? By actually realizing that they are represented in oval shapes. The lines that are going from the actor, writer, to the use case draft a story is called an association. Likewise, from the actor writer, you notice a line that is going towards revised story use case. This is also an association. Moving on. Let's refer to the example 2 for a railway reservation. Try identifying the actors and the use cases. So if we would try to identify the actors are represented by the stick figures. So in this case, we have three actors: traveler, clerk, and railway website. Remember, an actor can be a person, it can be a system, or it can even be an organization. So a website is also a system. The use cases include check ticket availability. We're looking at the oval shapes. Pay fare amount, book ticket, fill out personal information and travel details, cancel ticket, refund money. These are all examples of use cases. The primary actors are traveler and clerk. These are located on the left-hand side of the diagram. The secondary actor is railway website. This is located on the right-hand side. Another question: what's missing from the use case diagram? Is something missing? Think again, think wisely. Yes, there is something missing: the system boundary. So the system boundary is missing from this diagram. Now do note that the system diagram or the system boundary is mandatory in all use case diagrams. Also mandatory with the use case diagram is the title inside the system boundary. If we have a look in the previous slide, so the title here was publish a story. So the boundary and the title is missing from this example. This sums up our lecture on use case diagrams. Thank you, everyone.